It's Friday Eve. Good day. Thank you so much for hanging with us here on First Take. Skip Bayless, Molly Karam, Stephen A. is in the Big Apple. Gentlemen, what's the good word?
Good morning. How y'all doing?
How are you all doing?
I'm doing all right.
Good.
Let's go.
We got a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. Let's roll.
All right, let's do it. We're going to have Paxton Lynch joining us, draft prospect quarterback, and we'll get into all things draft with him. But first, the Eagles made waves Wednesday, making a trade with the Browns for the #2 overall pick in this year's NFL draft. The Browns will get the Eagles' 2016 first-round pick, #8 overall, and their 3rd and 4th round picks this year. They also get the Eagles' 2017 first-rounder and their 2018 second-rounder. The Eagles will get the Browns' #2 overall pick this year and their 2017 4th-round pick. Stephen A., did the Eagles give up too much?
It appears so. Listen, when you look at this deal on its face, the fact that the Browns get the #8 overall pick, a 3rd and a 4th round pick, another 1st round pick in 2017, and another 2nd round pick in 2018, you're looking at the Eagles and you're asking the question, what drug are you sniffing? And the reason why you're asking that question is not because of what they went through to get the #2 overall pick. It's because of the level of uncertainty evolving around the #2 overall pick. If there was a Dan Marino, a John Elway, a Peyton Manning, or in this day and age, Andrew Luck, who was a surefire top 2 overall pick, that would be entirely different. But there are a whole bunch of questions about Jared Goff. There are a whole bunch of questions about Carson Wentz. And when you look at it from that perspective and you understand the apprehension evolving around these two quarterbacks and whether or not either of them are worth a top 2 pick in the NFL draft, then it reeks of desperation that you would be willing to go this far in order to move up to the #2 overall slot just so you could get your hands on one of them when there are so many question marks associated with them. When you combine that with the fact that we're talking about a Philadelphia Eagles squad that was number 28 overall, where only the New Orleans Saints and the New York Giants, if I recall correctly, were worse defensively than they are. And they've done close to nothing to address their defensive liabilities, coming into this season. It's just a tad bit odd, to say the least. I don't want to sit up there and excoriate the Philadelphia Eagles because this is not Chip Kelly. This is not a person in Howie Roseman who believes that he's the be-all and end-all and the all-knowing and what have you. And let's debunk conventional NFL wisdom and do away with common sense and just follow my path. That's not how he comes across to me. Doug Peterson clearly doesn't come across to me as the new coach of the Philadelphia Eagles as being that kind of individual, and I'm certainly not going to include Jeffrey Lurie, the owner, in that equation because I have profound respect for him. What I will say, however, is that if you're going to go through all of this, you got to let me know that Carson Wentz or Jared Goff, these brothers are big time. They are no doubt bona fide, and they are clearly worthy of being a #2 overall pick, and that's why we're moving up to get them. But the trepidation evolving around both quarterbacks, Skip, leaves me cause to pause, and makes me sit back and say to myself, what the hell is going on here? Because it doesn't seem to make much sense to go through all of this to move up to the #2 pick.
I am with you. In fact, I'm so with you. Allow me to speak briefly as the Cowboy fan that I was born and raised to be. I'm pretty happy with this right now because I think this was a mind-blowing gamble by the Philadelphia Eagles that you covered for many years in the city of Philadelphia. I was dumbfounded, I was shocked, and yet I'm back to my premise here with Carson Wentz. I don't know what to make of him, so it's a little hard for me to condemn this deal. If you tell me Carson Wentz is going to be a 10 or 12 or 15-year Pro Bowl player, an elite quarterback, top 5, go down as one of the all-timers, I can't knock it. But I can't see it right now because I did not see him play. I've told you this before. North Dakota State, we've gone over and over. The mediocre at best competition. I'm trying to be nice to North Dakota State, but how do you know? How do you know for sure? Are you that sold on Carson Wentz? And my next question is, Philadelphia, are you also that sold on Jared Goff? Because the Rams continue to give off signals that they're not completely sure, even though most people think they're leaning toward Goff. And even though their GM, Les Snead, said yesterday, we do have a leader in the clubhouse, wouldn't indicate who that was, but we assume it's Jared Goff. Carson Wentz, just a day ago, was with the Rams. He was being interviewed one last time for reasons that escape me. So is it possible? You know how this NFL works, Stephen A. You know how sheep think paranoid this league is. Is it possible that after the haul that they risked to go up to number 2 from 8-2, Philadelphia risked, is it possible the Rams sit back today and say, uh-oh, maybe they know something we don't know about Carson Wentz. Maybe we should think a little harder about Carson Wentz because they're clearly locked in on Carson Wentz. Are they going to be locked in on Jared Goff if, in fact, the Rams flip the script and take Wentz? I don't know. That's why this is an even more mind-blowing gamble to me. And then furthermore, I'm going to reiterate this. Picking any quarterback in the first round, history will tell you, is about a 50-50 proposition. About 50% of the time, this league swings and misses at first-round quarterback picks. Think about that. That's mind-blowing to me. I'm just going to put it in one more perspective for you. We all agree the 2 greatest quarterbacks ever vying for 1A, Joe Montana, Tom Brady. Joe Montana lasted. He was passed over until the 3rd round of the draft. Tom Brady was passed over by team after team after team multiple times to the 6th round. Are you kidding me? And Philadelphia just bet the future to go up to number 2 on perhaps, possibly, probably a kid from North Dakota State. Are you sure he's going to turn into the next small school star, the next Terry Bradshaw from Louisiana Tech, or Phil Simms from Morehead State, or maybe Joe Flacco from Delaware? I don't know. If they know something I don't know, God bless them. But I also hear that we got Doug Peterson and Frank Reich and John DeFilippo, and they're all viewed around the league as quarterback makers. And now the 3 of them are together on that staff in Philadelphia. And people say, well, it won't matter which quarterback they get because they will be able to make him a star, the combined 3 brains. Really? I can just show you again and again where very good quarterback teachers took mediocre to bad quarterbacks in the first round, and they were just busts. They just couldn't fix them. They couldn't help them. So to me, this is the kind of gamble that can set you back for years unless you are dead set sure, and they can't even be dead set sure on which quarterback is going to be left for them at number 2. So I say good luck, Philadelphia.
Well, a couple of things. When you talk about Carson Wentz, they're talking about his size, even though I didn't see it from that footage. He didn't look that big to me.
No,
but they're
he's a
saying
big
his
kid.
size is there. They're saying his size is there, his athleticism is there.
Okay.
He's got a strong arms, et cetera, et cetera. With Goff, they're talking about he played, he's got small hands.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously with somebody like John Elway, whose hands measure like 10 1/8, Goff has a size 9 hands, and a John Elway, he thinks that hand size on a quarterback is a very, very huge deal, assisting their ability to hold on to the football in case they get hit, their ability to throw passes with more accuracy in the eyes of some quarterback aficionados, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know what to make of all of this. All I'm saying is this. We clearly recognize that in all likelihood, Wentz and Goff are going to be 1 and 2 picked in this year's draft. By all accounts, both Cleveland and L.A. clearly need a quarterback, okay? So we understand that. So since you understand that and you recognize that those are the 2 quarterbacks going to be taken, I get that part. What I don't get, Skip, is that nobody is sitting back and saying these 2 are legit, like they deserve to be mentioned in the same breath as surefire 1 or 2 picks historically getting picked up in the NFL draft. I don't hear those kind of laudables being attached to either quarterback. And if I don't hear that being attached to either quarterback, but you're going to give up literally 5 picks if you're the Philadelphia Eagles in order to move up and get them, I'm like, this is the same Philadelphia Eagles franchise that was booed when they drafted Donovan McNabb. And Donovan McNabb coming out of Syracuse certainly had more stature than any of these guys.
I agree.
So it's really hard to gauge right now. I just think that at the end of the day, You gave up all of this for a question mark. I'm saying you need to be sure. And how could they possibly be sure, Skip, if they don't even know who LA's going to take? So that's where this comes.
Yep,
now, if you're the number one, if all of this is for the number one overall pick,
yep.
even if you have questions, it's the number one overall pick, so you get to answer. The problem is LA's before you, and they got the same questions. So they may take the guy that you actually want, unless you're here, unless you're the Philadelphia Eagles, and you're here telling me that you hold both in high regard, which nobody else has.
Yep. Nope, I agree. And what have I told you all year about Jared Goff? I watched him maybe 5-6 games this year. I tried to fall in love with him. I like his pedigree because his father played in Major League Baseball. He was just sort of a journeyman catcher. But I like kids with professional athlete bloodlines. And yet I tried to fall in love, and I could only fall in like, especially after that Utah game. And I know it was just one game, but he was just all over the map, trying too hard.
5 interceptions is 5 interceptions.
A little bit of a gunslinger. I'm not sure enough. And if you told me that one of these would be a Cam Newton, Andrew Luck, you know, I'd say, and I'm not even that big a Luck fan, but at least, you know, Jameis Winston, I am a big Jameis fan. If you told me that that's what you're going to get here, I'd say, okay, I cease and desist. But all I know is I'm only happy right now for the Cleveland Browns, because that management I love. And that management just got the ammo to rebuild quickly. And I'm hoping that Robert Griffin III just got his opening to seize control of this job with picks and young stars starting to emerge around him, and maybe keep this job going forward. He just might. I'm sure they'll draft a quarterback in the, second round? I don't know. Maybe they'll take Connor Cook. I have no idea. But they'll probably have a rookie quarterback to develop, but it won't be a top 1 or 2 pick.
We shall see.
Yep.
We shall see.
The other time the Eagles have had the second pick was in '99, and they took one Donovan McNabb. The Carolina Panthers also things up here. They announced Wednesday that the team has rescinded the non-exclusive franchise tag on cornerback Josh Norman, making him a free agent. Panthers GM Dave Gettleman said after a number of conversations with Josh's agent, they realized that a long-term deal was not attainable. Here was Josh Norman on our show talking about the importance of getting a long-term deal done. This was back in March. Take a listen.
It's great to be wanted, but at the same time, knowing that some things got to be done in order to get past just wanting for 1 year. And I respect everything, you know, that the Panthers organization have brought. And nothing is personal between us. Nothing is personal. It's just the business side, which just sucks, you know? It really does. And it gets, you know, that personal side on the business. And that's what you got to try to, you know, work your way through.
Certainly is a business. Skip, what do you make of the Panthers pulling the franchise tag?
I don't know what I was more shocked by yesterday. The Eagles trading up from 8 to 2, or this team saying no to Josh Norman. And Stephen A., I'm sure there's still some long shot chance that they'll work something out before July, maybe, who knows. But I'm going to assume it's over with Josh Norman and the Carolina Panthers, and I'm going to assume that's a huge mistake on the part of the Carolina Panthers. I'm assuming their management finally took the stance that it sounds like yesterday Patrick Peterson, Chris Harris Jr. took, that Josh Norman's a little overrated, that he won't ever be worth the, 15 or 16 million that he and his agent were asking for from Carolina. I'm assuming Josh is going to get that on the open market. I've had my doubts in the past on this show about Josh Norman because he does play a lot of zone corner. So you can say, well, he's a little protected by the players around him. But I got to tell you, after I watched your New York Football Giants and Odell Beckham try to deal with this man, I was really impressed by Josh Norman that day, because Josh Norman obviously got inside Odell's head, got inside his jersey, and he suffocated him in that football game. And I was extremely impressed because that was shut down corner type play from him against clearly, can we go this far, the most talented receiver when we say Odell's the most talented receiver in pro football? And I know Odell came apart psychologically, but I think he came apart physically against Josh also. Josh Norman became the emotional leader of that defense this year. Josh Norman sort of grew up before your very eyes, and he was always around the ball, and he often set the tone for that defense. I know Kuechly did too, but I got to tell you, where I was left last night was, I'm thinking, hey, Jerry Jones, think about it. Think about strapping your cap here to try to squeeze Josh Norman under your cap, because I'd like him a lot more than I would Brandon Carr or Mo Claiborne. And I know Jerry's got a couple of young offensive stud linemen that are going to come due here pretty soon, but Josh Norman is now on the market, and you don't have to give up anything to get him. You just got to pay him. I would pay him, because this is a shocker to me that they would let him go.
Well, it's a shocker to me as well, and I've been on the phone all morning talking to various people that I know close to the situation, and from what I'm being told, Skip, the agent for Josh Norman didn't necessarily represent him in the right way. I don't know who this guy Mike George is. I never heard of him, but I will tell you that Josh Norman was of the mindset that, again, you know, he wanted to stay in Carolina. Last time I spoke to him was a couple of weeks ago. He was hell-bent on staying in the Carolina Panthers uniform. He believes that they've got an opportunity to win the Super Bowl next season. Obviously, the great year that they just had, coming off a 15-1 season and getting to the Super Bowl, really 17-1. He wanted to stay in Carolina. He didn't want to leave. He was under the impression that his representation was trying to get as much money for him as they could. Now, they were told that they could go and talk to other teams to see what kind of offer that they could get, and they were hopeful that Carolina would come back with more years, more money, as opposed to a one-year, $13 million franchise tag. But in a worst-case scenario, Josh Norman had every intention of going to the Carolina Panthers next week and signing a one-year franchise tag and staying in Carolina because he doesn't want to leave. So the fact that the Carolina Panthers will pull the offer off the table, that doesn't appear to be about Josh Norman. It appears to be about his representation. And even though ultimately you are responsible because your representation ultimately answers to you, you're responsible if you know specifically what your representation is doing, not if you're unaware of some of the things that are going on. Now, I haven't been able to reach Josh Norman this morning. I certainly called, but I would tell you something right now. The Josh Norman that I've come to know over the last few months, that I've spoken to on numerous occasions, that I interviewed leading into the Super Bowl, that is not a man that wants to leave Carolina. That's a man that wants to stay in Charlotte, North Carolina, playing for the Panthers. He's 28 years of age. He came into the NFL at 24. The team that gave him the shot, this kid out of Coastal Carolina, are the Carolina Panthers. He wants to stay. So if I'm David Gettleman and the crew, if I'm Mr. Richardson, the owner for the Carolina Panthers, and I'm preaching about family and I'm preaching about loyalty, and the agent was the one that was representing him playing hardball or what have you, before I put the nail in the figurative coffin on this matter, I take a phone call from Josh Norman, or I pick up the phone and I call him myself, and I talk about whether or not you want to be here. And if the worst case scenario is him signing that one-year tender at $13 million, then I would advise Josh Norman to sign the one-year deal and take the $13 million, because this is a guy, Skip, that has collected only $3 million in his career. His biggest payday in his career was this past season of $1.5 million. So to go from 1.5 to 13 million in football, as violent as it is, of course you want a longer term deal. But if worst case scenario is you signing a franchise tag, and if he's willing to do that, I think that's something that the Carolina Panthers should open the door and make sure they let happen, because it seems a bit shady to me right now, because I can't believe that Josh Norman, the guy that I talked to that was hell-bent on staying in Carolina, would allow something this ridiculous to transpire. I don't believe it for 1 second, and from what I'm hearing, he's telling folks he did not, that it was somebody else, meaning his representation. So stay tuned, because I don't know what the hell's going on.
Okay, but are you suggesting that you want Josh Norman to now crawl back to Carolina and say, please give me back the franchise tag, or I will take far less money to sign longer term? I'll take $12 million a year to sign longer term instead of 15 or 16?
Well, first of all, it all depends on whether or not he can get $15 million from somewhere else. I do understand what you're saying. And I'm certainly not saying to him that he should go and crawl back to the Carolina Panthers. What I'm saying is that if you're the Carolina Panthers, if you didn't converse with Josh Norman about what transpired here, You two owe it to one another to have a heart-to-heart conversation about what really transpired before anything is fragmented beyond repair, as opposed to specifically and solely relying on his representation, who, from what I'm being told, Josh Norman is telling folks that the agent representing him didn't represent his specific interest in this matter, not the way that he wanted it represented. So if that's the case, if you're the Carolina Panthers and you got an all-pro corner who's out there performing for you and helped you get to the Super Bowl, you owe one another a conversation before you part ways. That is what I am saying.
Okay, so are you suggesting that you're hearing Josh is blaming the agent for acting independent of
that's
Josh?
What I was,
that he was operating on his own autonomously, that he was the one asking for 15 or 16 million that alienated Panthers management? Is that what we're saying?
No. I'm not going to ever say that that an agent misrepresented a player in terms of asking for the amount of money that they were asking for. But when you play hardball to a point where the Carolina Panthers, using this example, is able to shut off talks and walk out the door, that's certainly not representing your client's interest if your client makes it clear to you that he wants to stay. So nobody's going to sit up there and say that Josh Norman wasn't trying to get as much money as he could possibly get. But at the same time, if it's been made clear to you that the door's about to be shut, this is opposition, and there we go. And that's not something that was conveyed to Josh Norman before the Carolina Panthers ultimately reached this conclusion, then you haven't represented him as adroitly as you should have. Those are the kind of things that I'm talking about. Let's make sure that Josh Norman was represented in the fashion that he wanted to be represented. It's one thing to go after your money. It's another thing when somebody says, take it or leave it, and it's not presented to you as a take it or leave it proposition until the offer is stripped from you, and now you've got to go out in free agent market and look for another job. I'm quite sure.
You act like that's a terrible thing. Oh, he's forced to go onto the free agent market and look for will somebody please give me a job? I mean, he could just say, thank you, God, I'm free. I can do whatever I want.
It depends on what you want, Skip. That may be accurate if all you wanted was the money. But if you wanted the money specifically from Carolina, because that's the team that you've played with in your career, that's the city that you've played in, that's where you want to be, then that's an entirely different matter. It's all relative. For somebody like you and others, it might not matter. For somebody like him, it may very well matter that he stays with the team that he played with. Remember, you played at Coastal Carolina. They picked you up when you were 24 years of age. You want to be here with Cam and the crew. You might not want to go somewhere else. So I'm saying it's incumbent upon Carolina to find that out before you shut the door.
Okay,
I think that's fair.
You know, and I know this is big advantage Carolina management right now. That if they just called his bluff, whether it's the agent's bluff or Josh's bluff, they just said, no, we're out. And the only way this can be rectified, the only way they can rebuild a relationship now, Josh is going to have to crawl back for far less money. And
well, I doubt he's going to do that.
Well, I'm just saying that's the position he's just been thrust into.
I think worst case scenario for Josh is that he accepts the 1 year, $13 million tender.
But they rescinded it. They said we don't want to do that because we think ongoing that our inability to sign you long term is going to be a distraction for our football team. And they said we're out. We don't want the 1 year because it will only lead to building problems here between the two of us.
Okay, well then it's not going to work. But I'm telling you from what I'm being told what his wish is. Because his wish was never for Carolina to shut the door. I can tell you that.
Okay, well, it just got slammed in his face. So now he's going to have to deal with the one. He can either go back for far less money and hope they would take him back, or he can embrace the fact that he's one of the top cornerbacks in football and he is now free to negotiate with anybody anywhere, with no compensation owed back to Carolina.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's true. That's true. And that could very well be an advantage if he ends up going someplace he actually likes to be.
I agree. Yep.
But right now, he wants to be in Carolina.
Well, now Adam reported yesterday, Adam Schefter, that he likes California. I don't know, but so they were speculating on 6 o'clock Sports Center Would he like the Raiders? 49ers have huge cap money. I don't know that he'd want to go there.
Here's what I'm hearing right now. This just came down.
Yeah.
Adam Schefter, David Newton reporting there's up to 10 teams interested. No surprise. The team showing the most interest, the Niners, as you mentioned, one of the 5 teams with the most cap space. The Redskins, Steelers, and Dolphins right now are expressing the most interest. But
Steelers.
10 teams.
I knew that.
I would love them with the
His ears
Steelers.
perked.
See, now,
I would love
now
them with the
you're
Steelers.
happy. Now you're happy that they just said no to Josh Norman, right?
Well, it's nothing that's now. I'm not happy nor unhappy. It ain't my money. I'm fine. I'm just telling you what I've been hearing. And I'm saying to you that if somebody wants to be in a particular locale, that's something that you have to take into consideration. Also, you got to think about it. Carolina was willing to put the tender on the table to begin with. So to yank it off, to all of a sudden come to the conclusion we don't want to have to deal with this in the future, I think that kind of makes them look bad. Because, again, if you got somebody that's produced for you and you gave the impression that you were going to take care of them and suddenly you rescind on that kind of offer, particularly if the guy is out there spreading noise that was his agent as opposed to his wish, then if you're the Carolina Panthers and you still want to keep the door shut, then I think that's a message to future potential candidates for wearing a Carolina Panther uniform that this is the way they choose to do business.
Well, now they're stuck with or left with Bené Benwickery or Robert McClain. Good luck with that.
All right.
We'll continue to track this, but up next we're going to switch gears to the playoffs. About last night, LeBron has no issue with Stan Van Gundy, but another Stan did get in his way. We'll react to him and Stanley Johnson's physicality after the break. Stay with us. First Take, just getting started.
I'm trying to be nice. It was ignorant, so I hate it. I like Stanley Johnson. I liked him at Arizona. I like the fact that his mom, who's a former basketball player, actually trained him. I'm quite sure he's had a wonderful upbringing, a wonderful family. I'm quite sure he's a really good guy. I've met him once or twice. Looking forward to seeing him again. He's a talented player, got a bright future. Appreciate the fact that, even before he arrived at Arizona, if I remember correctly, he had a workout with Kobe Bryant, seeking out somebody like that, trying to tap into the level of greatness that ultimately reigned over the NBA for so many years. But Stanley Johnson is a rookie. He's 19 years of age. I mean, this brother is basically wearing diapers in basketball parlance. And you're going to talk mess about LeBron James? What are you thinking? I mean, I understand he's got an upside, and Stanley Johnson has got the potential to be something special in this league for years to come. I'm not trying to knock him as a person, as a basketball player, or anything. This is strictly about what you're talking about. You're down 0-2 in the series. LeBron is averaging 24.5 during the series. You understand he shot 50% from three-point range last night. He finished with 27-6 or whatever it was. You mean you in his head? And not only that, he's a 4-time league MVP. He's a 2-time champion. He's universally recognized as one of the top 2 players in the world, and that's after definitively being the #1 player in the world for several years, over the last several years. There's a level of deference and respect. You don't have to bow to him. You don't have to fear him. It doesn't mean you don't challenge him or anything like that. But you are 19 years old. You are a puppy. And you want to do this? Particularly when LeBron is coming to your house tomorrow night to play you yet again in a playoff game? It just reeks of ignorance. Obviously youthful ignorance, not ignorance like he's dumb or anything like that, because I'm not trying to imply that, but just being young and a bit beside yourself and not understanding the level of decorum that comes with playing this game, particularly against stars who are tried and proven. I just thought it was very, very unwise and ill-advised for him to say. If this were a Reggie Jackson or somebody else, even though I wouldn't approve of it then either, it would be for different reasons. But in the case of Stanley Johnson, you're a puppy in this business, man. Do you elevate your game and your skills before you open your mouth? That's all I'm saying.
I think you're being a little too hard on Stanley Johnson. And like you, I like his game. I like his attitude. I like his body language. He's not afraid. He has made 4 or 5 threes that he shot in these first 2 games. Obviously, both Detroit losses at Cleveland. I clearly did not love the impact and the timing of what he said. And obviously, to your point, this kid looks all-time ridiculous saying he got inside LeBron's head after LeBron torched him because LeBron went 6 for 6 when Stanley Johnson was guarding LeBron last night. And as we all know, Cleveland shot Detroit out of the gym last night. It was 107-90, thanks in large part to a playoff record-tying 23-point shots made by the Cleveland Cavaliers. And when, as you know, Stephen A., if J.R. Smith goes 7 for 11 every night from 3, Cleveland's going to win the championship. They'll be Golden State, but as you know, probably not going to happen every night. But it happened last night. So back to this kid. I think he's reflecting the attitude that is being taught and encouraged by his coach, Stan Van Gundy. That whole attitude of we ain't afraid of no LeBron. And back to the point that we heard LeBron make, you remember this well, Stephen A., 2009, Stan Van Gundy was the architect of one of LeBron's most embarrassing playoff losses. Remember, he hit the shot heard round the world to win Game 2 in Cleveland to even that series at 1-1, and everybody said, here comes LeBron. We got a collision course between Kobe and LeBron in the NBA Finals. Kobe got there. LeBron didn't make it because they promptly lost games 3 and 4 in Orlando. They went home and won game 5, and then they were eliminated in 6 games by Stan Van Gundy, whose team, by the way, shot 42% from 3 in that series, basically rained threes on LeBron's head. So Stan is preaching and teaching, don't be afraid. He does have his weaknesses, and go hard at him. Don't back off from him. So I liked what Stanley Johnson said about, I wish LeBron would do his talking before the game and not as they're pulling away in the game, because that's what happened last night as they were pulling away. I don't think, I'm not saying that Stanley got inside LeBron's head, but I think he did get a little under his skin because that bump, I think LeBron went out his way to bump that kid just to say, hey, you have not arrived yet. Not in my house will you treat me like that. So he did acknowledge him enough to go bump him. And then I thought LeBron was, again, he was playing hard last night because he gave that angry dunk face after that early dunk, because remember, Detroit got up by 10 early in that game, and I think LeBron was paying a lot of respect to an 8 seed. And then later in the game, it was still a little dicey, but LeBron made his first 3. And to Stanley's point, hey, that's not normal for LeBron. I remind everybody, all season long, for almost the whole season, LeBron was the second worst three-point shooter in the league. And he made one, and then you remember he's backing down the court, and Marcus Morris hadn't come out to guard him at the three-point line. He's giving him that look, if we could see it, like, you didn't guard me at the three-point line? No, that's their game plan. They're not going to guard LeBron. They're going to dare him to shoot threes. So the kid's on to something. His pride was hurt because LeBron bumped into him, tried to sort of run over him, and he's standing up for himself after the game. I get you, wrong place, wrong time, but I just like the guts of it. I like the backbone of it, and it shows me Detroit will not go quietly in this series when they go to Detroit.
Well, let's bring a couple of things into consideration. Let's backtrack to the 2009 Eastern Conference Finals when Cleveland lost to Orlando. When LeBron hit that shot heard around the world, as you so eloquently stated it, in Game 2, the Stan Van Gundy that beat LeBron from there on was the same LeBron that scored 41 the next game, 44 the game after that, 37 the game after that, and then in the closeout game when Dwight Howard had 40, LeBron had 25 in that game, which was basically his last, his next to last season in Cleveland. What I'm saying is Stan Van Gundy won because he had Dwight Howard surrounded by sizable shooters. You had a Rashard Lewis who could shoot, but he was 6'10". You had Hedo Turkoglu Turkoglu who could shoot. He was 6'7". You had a Mikal Petras and a Courtney Lee and these boys, all 6'5" and above, who could shoot. So you surrounded them with shooters. And what you had with LeBron, when LeBron was busy doing his thing, you had Mo Williams and Delonte West and Anderson Varejao and Zydrunas Ilgauskas, who was as slow as a snail with arthritis. Not that snails can have arthritis, but you get my point for elocution. The point that I'm trying to make to you is that there were better players, particularly with the system that Stan Van Gundy was employing, at his disposal than LeBron had at his disposal. Now we fast forward to now. I'm not saying in any way that Stanley Roberts should bow down or back down to LeBron or anything like that, or that he shouldn't follow his coach's lead in terms of not being intimidated by LeBron, showing that LeBron has weaknesses, and indeed you could possibly get to him. But when you are 19 years of age and you've done close to nothing in this league yet, I believe that Stanley Roberts has tremendous potential. And I think that he's going to be a very gifted player. And you know how I feel about Stan Van Gundy as a coach. I think he is exceptional. And he's a no-nonsense, tell it like it is kind of guy, my kind of guy. I love that about him. All I'm saying about Stanley Johnson is that you're talking about LeBron James here. And who are you? Whatever you're going to be, you're not that yet. You could keep your mouth shut and just go out on the court and go at him fearlessly, as opposed to giving quotes about you being inside his head, which, by the way, are in the aftermath of you losing not one but the first 2 games of a playoff series in which you are in danger of getting swept. I'm just saying, you got to know better.
I got it. The kids' pride was raw because I think their whole locker room was raw last night because, remember, they were up 10 in the first quarter. They were up 5 in the second quarter. They were up 5 in the third quarter, and they got shot out of the gym by a playoff record 23-point shots. So my point is that they thought they were better than that. Like they hung in better than the final score indicates, which is why I get that they're just saying we're not going away here. We're not going to lay down for LeBron James.
I don't believe they will lay down either, but maybe they shouldn't lay down for J.R. Smith, because last time I checked, he's the one that hit 7 3-pointers last night.
Yeah. No, I know, but how is he going to do it again? Will he do that in game 3 and 4?
I'm just saying maybe that should be maybe that should be their concern instead of LeBron. J.R. Smith did drop 7 3-pointers last night.
I said that, but remember during the finals last year, how many APBs did you put out for J.R. Smith during the finals?
Absolutely. But this is the first round, and it's the Detroit Pistons, not the Golden State Warriors. Know your position.
Got it.
In his last 5 games against the Cavs, Johnson has averaged over 16 points per game in 36 minutes. And you rattled off some heights earlier, Stephen A. 6'7". We have someone here who fits that category, and he's not an NBA player, future NFLer. We have a very special guest. Paxton Lynch is here. Come on out, Paxton.
Can he shoot threes? I want to know.
I bet he can shoot threes.
Can you shoot?
He's got style, that's for sure. Memphis quarterback, Paxton Lynch.
How you doing? Good to see you.
How are you? Nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us.
What's going on, man?
Nothing much.
We'll talk to you in just a minute. We'll get you a chair, too.
Sounds good.
All those negative inputs, don't worry at all.
Reminds me of a poor man's Jamarcus Russell. At least Jamarcus had some touch. This guy just throws the ball. His mechanics are all over the place. Strong arm, big body. Not the brightest cookie in the world. I worry about him when he gets money in his pocket. I just don't know if it's all there mentally. Pretty harsh. Skip, your reaction.
Stephen A. Smith, forgive me if I get a little over-emotional as I talk about this, but I'm seething over these quotes. As you know, I'm a Cardale fan. I also respect Bob McGinn, who's a very respected columnist who does these draft overviews every year anonymously quoting scouts. But I'm sorry, these quotes to me come across as racially insensitive, if not flat out racist, because they play right back into the age-old stereotype of the black quarterback that I've heard for years and years and years, and I thought we were past them. But in this case, we're saying through these quotes, this quarterback can't think, he can't handle the money he's about to be given, he can't be consistently accurate because his mechanics are so poor. And in this case, he's not even Jamarcus Russell. He's a poor man's Jamarcus Russell, as in he's not just a bust, he's a poor man's bust. And it reminds me of what I've told you about what I heard before the 1978 draft of Doug Williams. I was sent by the LA Times to do a week-long interview session with Doug at Grambling. He went in the 78 draft, I think 17th overall. Heard all the same things about Doug. And in fact, I've been thinking over the last week that Cardale's throwing motion actually reminds me of Doug Williams. All Doug did was to go on with the Washington Redskins to become the first black quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl. So in this case, I'm thinking, okay, Cardale is about 6'5", Doug was about 6'4". They remind me of each other. And the Cardale I know a little bit that I've heard a lot about because I've talked to so many people about him. Man, I think he's a bright kid. He's still a kid, but he's a bright kid with huge athletic ability and talent. And I just hope this fuels Cardale. I've said it, and I'm going to say it again. I hope my Cowboys take Cardale Jones somewhere down, second, third round. I don't know. I hear that he might fall below that. Maybe these comments won't help his stock. But I hope my Cowboys get a hold of him, and I hope they give him a legitimate shot to make it big in this league, because I think he can make it big. And Stephen A., to finish, I'm reminded of something that you've said to me many times and that I've heard many times before on this show. What black parents for generations have told their kids growing up. You have to be twice as good. And Cardale, I guess you're going to have to be twice as good, because I think you got the potential to be twice as good.
Well, let's finish that sentence. You're gonna what black parents usually tell kids is that you have to be twice as good to get half as much.
Yep.
Let's make sure we finish that sentence. Now, this guy Bob McGinn, I'm not casting any aspersions on him. He's a reporter. He's a columnist at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. If this is what a scout told him, so be it. I would sincerely hope that Bob McGinn took the liberty of picking the phone back up, or before hanging up the phone on that particular conversation, he also told the scout, you know, you sound racist as hell, right? You do know that, because that's exactly how to sound. Racist as hell. And that's the only way to look at this. And I'm going to go to this last sentence, Skip. Think about this. Not the brightest cookie in the world. I worry about him when he gets money in his pocket. Think about that for a second. Who the hell do you think you are? That coward, punk, no good scout that would sit up there and not attach his name to this and put that stuff out there about this kid on a personal level like that. It's his agreement.